"There's goblins in the basement," his father had told him. "You have to watch out, or they will get you." What Michael didn't know at his young age is that his father was only teasing him. He was a prankster and he enjoyed the gullibility of his young son. Michael had no reason not to believe his dad, and he was both fascinated and terrified by the belief that there were goblins living in his basement. All his friends at school, and even his teachers, had been informed by him on multiple occasions that there were terrifying creatures living underneath his house. Of course, he avoided the basement at all costs. The only times he ever went down there were when he was accompanied by an adult, and even then, he was uneasy. One day, his friend Jonathan was over to play. "Can I see them?" Jonathan asked. "Are you talking about the goblins?" Michael said. "Yeah, I want to see them. I've never seen goblins before." Now, the truth was that Michael had never seen goblins before either, but he would never admit this. He had told his friends that he had seen them several times. "Follow me," Michael said. Jonathan did just that. They came to the door that led into the basement. He opened it. Both boys looked down the stairs into the dark basement. "I can't see anything," Jonathan complained. "Can't we turn on the light?" This seems like an obvious fix to their problem, but it was more complicated than that. For an adult, the light switch was easy access, but to these two youngsters who were not very tall, it would take a bit of leaning into the stairwell to reach the light switch. Adding to the difficulty of this feat was the knowledge that they were leaning into this dark chasm that contained goblins. Goblins that at any moment could reach out and grab them. "The light switch is right up there," Michael commented. "Go ahead and turn it on." Jonathan looked at it and came to the realization that if he were going to go for it, he could be putting his life in danger. "No way. You do it." It became pretty obvious that neither boy was going to be turning on the lights. After about a minute of standing there, staring into the darkness of the basement, Jonathan screamed. This startled Michael, who slammed the door. The boys ran as fast as they could to Michael's bedroom. Jonathan claimed he saw something, and the more Michael thought about it, he started to wonder whether or not maybe he had seen it too. They had quite the story to tell when they went back to school. As years went by, Michael and his father spent a lot of time together, going to parks, watching television, playing games, just about anything, and they were good memories. Michael didn't realize until later in life how truly valuable those times were. Also, as he grew older and became more mature, he began to realize some things. He became aware of the joking nature of his dad and how it was possible that not everything he had ever told him was necessarily true. This, of course, included the feared goblins in the basement. When he was a teenager, he was no longer afraid of such things, and he had no problem going into the basement by himself. Well, most of the time at least. It wasn't long after he graduated that tragedy struck. His father suffered a stroke unexpectedly and passed away. After this happened, he began to appreciate the memories with his dad that he had accumulated throughout the years. He made a promise to himself that when he had his own children, he would be sure to do the same. Michael met Evelyn after college. They didn't date for too long before they decided to get married. After marriage, they rented an apartment and began saving for the eventual purchase of a house. A couple of years later, they caught a break, but it wasn't in the way that they wanted. Michael's mother passed away, and his childhood house was willed to him, so they moved in. The years passed, and in time, they had two sons. Michael loved his boys and wanted to do everything with them. In the early days, they did too. He remembered the memories he had with his dad, and he wanted to do the same for these two. One thing his father had done that he had vowed he would never do was scare his boys, whether it be about goblins or anything else. You don't need to be afraid of the dark, he told them. Luke and Levi were like any other child and had a natural fear of the unknown and of the dark. There's nothing to be afraid of. But what about the basement, Dad? Levi asked. It's so creepy down there. There's no reason to be afraid, he told them. I'll prove it to you. The two boys watched in horror as their dad walked down the basement stairs without turning on the light. As he was slowly coming up the stairs, he saw the two of them standing at the top. It reminded him of the day that he and Jonathan had stood in that very spot, scared out of their minds. If you had told his younger self that one day he would slowly walk up and down these stairs in the dark, he never would have believed it. See, he said upon his return to the top of the stairs, nothing to be afraid of. Nothing at all. He wondered if his efforts of teaching them to not fear the dark were in vain, but in time he realized that they were starting to believe him. He was proud of the fact that he was the father of two children who did not fear the dark. The one thing that in his mind was a failure of his father's, he had corrected in his own parenting. The boys were so unafraid that they soon began wanting to spend time in the basement. Michael had no problem with this, and he was glad for it. He installed their own television down there, and they had all of their video games. He loved this. The very place he had been terrified of as a child was the same place his sons were embracing. What a win. One day, Luke was passing him in the kitchen. Hey, Luke, do you and your brother want to go walk down to the park? Not really, was the reply he got as he opened the door to the basement and descended. Another day, Levi passed him. Levi, what do you say we go fishing today? I don't know, Dad. That sounds kind of boring. And into the basement he went. This became the recurring theme in their home. His sons loved playing downstairs so much with their video games. They had no interest in doing things with him anymore, and this made him sad. His sadness worsened one day when they were playing a really loud video game and getting really into it with their hooting and hollering and sound effects. His wife Evelyn said, "What in the world are they doing down there? Such loud and crazy boys. They sound like a couple of goblins." And then he realized his childhood fear had finally come to pass. There really were goblins in the basement. If you enjoyed this story, if you wouldn't mind clicking like, thank you for listening. This is Custom Storyteller. If you have a suggestion for a story, a request, you can email the email address that is located on your screen. Again, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed it, again, click like, say something in the comments. Maybe if you know someone who you think might enjoy our stories, share it with them. Also, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. And we have several other videos, several stories already uploaded. If you want to go ahead and check those out, we'd invite you to do so. Again, thank you for listening, and goodbye.